today we'll be looking at how the story of GTA 5 would have played out if in the wrap-up mission, Steve Haines managed to arrest Michael and Dave before the IAA, Merriweather, and all of those guys get there, and it's all turned into the massive shootout that we know from the original game. So let's do it. So Steve Haines would order Agent Sanchez to arrest Michael and Dave, but then everyone pulls out their guns and shit starts to get real, since everyone is refusing to put their guns down. As a result, Steve Haines would shoot Michael in the leg, after which Dave, not wanting to get shot himself, would get arrested, all while in the process of losing his shit because this went totally opposite of how he wanted it to go. One thing I want you to keep in mind is that this way Agent Sanchez would not die, but we'll get to him a little bit later. After this, Michael wakes up handcuffed to a hospital bed, and at this point he's aware that he got shot, but of course he can't do anything but wait for his trial. But what would happen with the other two protagonists at this point? Well, let's start with Trevor. Simply,
he's dead.
Because when the cops show up looking for Trevor, knowing him, he would probably kill dozens of cops. There would be a massive shootout that would end with Trevor, of course, dead. Not before he mows down, let's say, 10 to 20 cops, like I said. But what about Franklin? Okay, let me warn you for a second. This next part is based on a bit of research I did, and it's very possible that this next part of the video I get completely wrong, since I don't know jack shit about the US law, but I'll stick to this for the purpose of the story. So Franklin would also go to prison, and by the time the trial rolls around, Lester would be gone. The second he heard the news, Lester just vanished without a trace, and knowing him, he probably changed his identity and is in hiding somewhere where no one will ever find him. So there's no chance that the cops are ever getting to him by any means. Lamar is also dead, because when Lamar Down takes place, he would just be killed at the sawmill by the Ballas without Franklin there to save him. There is no chance that he's getting out of there alive. But let's get to the actual trial now. So in my opinion, the person with the worst punishment for this would without a doubt be Steve Haines, considering all of the shit that he did, from ordering Trevor to torture Mr. K, to ordering Michael and Franklin to rob the FIB building, and we can't forget him orchestrating and being involved in stealing the nerve agent from the Humane Labs with Dave and Michael. And when you consider that he was the mastermind behind all of this, and the fact that the whole thing at the Humane Labs happened, could even pass as domestic terrorism as far as I've heard. Now, Steve Haines is, in my opinion, getting the death penalty, and the final nail in the coffin for him, quite literally, is that it's very likely that Michael, Franklin, and most importantly Dave would likely testify against him in court, and that's also how Steve would end up as a suspect in the first place, and how he would even end up in that courtroom. Because I imagine that 3 people testifying against him, along with one also being an FIB agent, would put him in the courtroom with everyone else. Real quick, if you're enjoying this video right now, please do leave a like on the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. That helps me out a ton. Also, feel free to check out my channel memberships if you want to support the channel in another way. But what about the other feds involved? That being, of course, Agent Sanchez and Dave Norton. Well, let's take care of Sanchez first, as there is less to him in all honesty. So Sanchez was just Steve's minion who didn't really do nearly as much shit as the others did. With that said, I do think that he would get maybe 5 to 10 years. Although one thing I'm not completely clear about is whether or not he's actually corrupt, or was he actually a double agent investigating Steve Haines. If that's the case, then of course he wouldn't go to jail, but I do think that he was corrupt. Please correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I do think that in that case he would get maybe 5 to 10 years. I honestly can't see him getting any more than that, considering what I think the others would get. But what about Dave Norton? Well, Davey did worse things. After all, he used his power as an FIB agent to make a deal with and hide a wanted bank robber and murderer, along with being involved in Steve Haines' shit show. But considering that he was an FIB agent and that he also testified against Steve, I could see Davey getting anywhere from 20 to 30 or maybe even 40 years, although that might be a bit of a stretch. Now, let's look at the main duo, Michael and Franklin. So going by what Dave said in Dead Man Walking in this scene,
if we don't
then I will go to jail and you will get shot.
Ah, fuck you, Dave.
Michael would at first be looking at the death penalty because he has helped Steve Haines and was also involved with the whole thing, probably the most out of the main trio, but also because of the fact that he used to be wanted for years and years, even before the events of the main game. However, I do think that maybe he would get sentenced to life in prison with maybe the possibility of parole after, let's say, 40 years due to him testifying against Steve just like the others. And as for Franklin, I can see him getting anywhere between 10 or maybe up to 20 years, considering he was the least involved in what they did for Steve, but he would still of course go to prison for a long time. But what about other characters like Stretch, Solomon Richards, Devin Weston, or Wei Chang? Well, Stretch would, like I said, have Lamar killed in the sawmill, so after that he would be able to keep the peace between the Ballas and the CGF. Solomon Richards would be in the shitter because Devin Weston would screw him over and close the studio down, and Wei Chang would be the true winner of this story. I guess you could say Devin Weston could be as well, but Wei Chang would, of course, with Trevor now dead, he could now expand his business into Blaine County. And as for Michael's family, they would likely visit him in prison from time to time and maybe hope for him to get out when he's an old man, and this would also force them to give up that luxurious lifestyle that Michael's been enabling for them for years up until this point. And with that said, I want to thank you for watching this GTA 5 What If. Until the next video stream, bye bye.